this time that we've been in is kind of crazy. We're getting all kinds of information from all these places, and told not to believe our eyes, and don't believe what we hear, and don't believe what we see, because what kind of judge are we of reality? But we don't have to. It looks like to me that a good time is coming. So let's go to Matthew chapter 5. I'm going back to basics because all this chaos that we've been suggested to for the past year or so. Matthew chapter 1. Okay. Change the hand. It's here. You know, Matthew and John. I mean, there's Luke and there, and Mark. But I like Matthew and John. So, in Matthew chapter 5, and it's 1 through 10, when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up to the mountain. And as he sat down, his disciples drew near to him, and he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the humble, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall have mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of justice, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. What's he saying there? You know, we're Christians in that we follow the words of Jesus the Christ. But all throughout, you know, if you read carefully, you'll see that Jesus is always saying, I taught them with an allegory, or I taught them with a metaphor because I didn't think they'd understand otherwise. This is our story, man. This is our story. Mine, yours. We're everybody here. This is our story. Jesus is who we could be in a metaphysical sense. I'm not even going to go into the whole thing about whether Jesus had blonde hair and blue eyes. Not from Nazareth even, but and I'll tell you the story that Michelangelo, well, it was the sixth, it was the Pope at the time, Alexander recommended a model for who he thought Jesus should look like, and sent him to one of the other painter there, Leonardo da Vinci. And Leonardo, and they don't teach this, but it was thought that the model, and we know his name, and we know the Pope, was Leonardo's gay lover. Think about that. Anybody have a problem with it? No. What kind of nutty, crazy people have we become? You know, and that's not what we're taught. What you're saying here is, you know, be humble. Give. Love. Be pure of heart. What does pure of heart mean? Does that mean you didn't steal candy from the store when you were behind a grasshopper? No. Pure heart means when you come to pray, come through a sacred space, you know. So let's move on a little deeper to what's being said here. And this is why I go back to the basics, because chapter 5, let me get my where did I put it? Oh, there it is. Okay. In Matthew chapter 5, 44 through 45, some people feel more secure when you give Bible numbers instead of quotes. But I say to you, love your enemies, bless anyone who curses you, do good to anyone who hates you, and pray for those who carry you away by force and persecute you, so that you may become sons of your Father who is in heaven, who causes his sun to shine upon the good and the bad, and who pours down his rain upon the just and the unjust. By the way, does this stuff only pertain to where this was written at the time, or is this universal stuff? You know, the chief of my tribe is named Tupac. And then he has a long Indian name. But it means, we're talking about the reign of justice pouring down. His Indian name means sees the rain. And he's a leader. He sees the rain. He sees the justice pouring down. He can vision that, which is why he got elected leader. And then let's go to Matthew chapter 7 for a minute. Judge not, that you may not be judged. For with the same judgment that you judge, you will be judged. And with the same measure with which you measure, it will be measured to you. Karma, baby. Why do you see the splinter which is in your brother's eye, and do not feel the beam which is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take out the splinter from your eyes, and behold, there is a beam in your own eye? O hypocrites, first take out the beam in your own eye, and then you will see clearly to get out the splinter from your brother's eye. Let's go on to 7. Ask, and it shall be given to you. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened to you. For whoever asks receives, and he who asks finds, and up to him who knocks the door is opened. Or who is the man among you, or woman, who, when his son asks him for bread, will hand him a stone? Metaphorically, Jesus is saying, you know, if we're the children of God, and this is what fathers would naturally do, is not give a hungry child a stone, he'll give him bread. And the bread in this case that we're talking about is spiritual bread. And within here, it sounds a little disjoint, but I'm getting to tying it all together. This is, if he should ask him for fish, will he hand him a snake? If therefore you err, know how to give good gifts to your sons, how much more will your Father in heaven give good things to those who ask? Whatever you wish men to do for you, do likewise also for them. And like I say, this is our story. This is a recipe book on how to treat each other. This is a recipe book for a life that doesn't impinge on other people's lives, that doesn't judge other people, that loves everyone equally. You know, and I'll just go to John. You know, people like to say, Jesus left one commandment for us. No, he left two. And the first one is, love thy God above all else. Don't be distracted with the politics in Afghanistan and what's going on at your neighbor's house, and sitting there taking inventory on people that don't agree with you. Because what does that accomplish? The recipe for life is in this book for a spiritual life. And it's, you know, it's a choice. You want one? You got it. The second, and then we're going to go back. The second commandment, or the one where he says, a new commandment I give you, that you love one another, just as I have loved you, that you also love one another. Now, that's pretty simple. Pretty simple statement. How do we accomplish that? Well, it's spelled out here. Blessed are the humble, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the meek, so they shall inherit the earth. The first spiritual principle of humility is there. You know, and all we need to see everything in here is open-mindedness, willingness, and honesty. Other spiritual principles. So, the rest of this stuff that I've read to you is part of the recipe. Part of the recipe. Do not judge that you may not be judged. How many times during the week do you find yourself, you don't like the way the guy parked the car, and that one walked in front of you, and this one is giving the cashier an attitude, and you're walking around thinking of everything else but your God. Above all else, love thy God. And that God is not, Jesus tells us, it's not out here. It's not, I don't look up to Pluto and go, God, it's in here. It's in here. And it's manifest in here as the Christ. Just in terms of education, Jesus' last name was not Christ. Jesus' last name was Ben Yusuf. And he was Jesus Ben Yusuf, or the Muslims called him Isa. The Christ has come to mean Savior, but the Christ is the way shower, the guiding light. Jesus never says, you know, I've read this thing, man. He never comes out, he never says, I am the only begotten Son of God. That came much later. That came much later. What I do want to emphasize, if I can get back to that one, is where did I take you? Let me back here. It says in Matthew 45, chapter 5, 45, so that you may become sons of your Father who is in heaven, who causes his sun to shine upon the good and the bad, and who pours down his rain upon the just and the unjust. And we're back to that rain thing. But it says, so that you may become sons of your Father. Now, of course, everything was written fairly one-sided in 300 AD when they were writing this thing, 317. But what's meant by sons of your Father means, to me, sons and daughters of your Creator. And you can see that Creator however you want. But there is something in the universe, a force, that keeps creating things. And sometimes we don't recognize it. Looks like it's breaking down a tree. But it breaks down that tree to feed the grass. Grass is eaten by animals, which we often eat. Or other kinds of grasses like wheat grow and we eat that. It's one big circle of the creative power of the universe giving to us. You know, and if we're not blind like the man at Capernaum, and we open our eyes and we keep God in our sacred space in our heart, we see these miracles happening around us. I happen to know a lot of addicts. I happen to stop over my house and come in, and each one of them is a miracle because they're not using drugs. They found a spiritual path as their light, you know. Humility. In order to accept that something is bigger than you, you have to be humble. You can't say, well, nothing's bigger than me. Well, we do that all the time when we're in the store and a guy cuts in front of us with his basket. Don't we do that when we step back and we say, well, who the hell does he think he is? You know? He's an unaware, acting in a non-spiritual way, and we try to see the creative energy, the creative force of the universe within him, the potential to change his behavior, and we love him because he has the potential to change his behavior. We don't accept one snippet and judge a man's whole life or a woman's whole life on that. Oh, you can. You can be miserable, you know, and you got to be open to the miracles around you. And I believe that we have a wonderful higher power. We can tap into the energy of our higher power with our thoughts and with our heart. And as long as we're willing to put out the footwork, we can manifest just about anything we want. You know, I know all these people say, yeah, I want good things. I really want good things. Well, why don't you clean up your place? I don't feel like it right now. Well, you know, you feel like everything's chaotic? It may be. It may be. You know, when I take my socks off and I feel like I'm too tired to walk to the laundry basket, confession, you know, I may drop them on the floor. But I've learned to pick them up in the morning, put them in the laundry basket, and I learned the hard way. Learn the hard way. You know, when you wake up one morning, you throw a leg out of bed, and there's 4 pair of pants, 3 socks, and all this, you know, like, and you go, oh my God, I haven't been paying attention. And I don't do it for you, I do it for me. I'm trying to be less chaotic in my life. I'm trying to love everybody. It's much more difficult to be a Christian, according to the words of Christ, than it is to say you're a Christian. You got to put in the work. And, you know, you can perceive our story as something that's concrete. And if it says, you know, I don't know what they were thinking when they write some of the stuff, but I understand the metaphors, you know. If you're seeing stuff you don't like, you know, gouge your eye out. I don't think they expected you to gouge your eye out. Or maybe they did, but that would have been foolish. If you want to take this as concrete, you know, I've read this whole book. You know, it's up to you folks. You can take my word for it. I've read it cover to cover, but like any human, I turned to specific chapters, and I ended up reading the whole thing like that. I didn't read it cover to cover. It doesn't, nowhere in here does it say, does Jesus, the Christ, say, you must pray to me. Right? You know. In fact, he says, love your God above all else. He says, you too can be sons and daughters of God. You know, and I'd rather go with what he says. If Jesus says he teaches in metaphors and allegories and stuff, well, then I'm going to read these stories as metaphor and allegories. I'm humble today. You know, I don't have to have one person tell me this book means one thing and I can't think for myself anymore, because intellect is one of my God-given powers, 12 powers. So, gang, love each other, love one another as you would love yourselves. Do unto each other as you would have done to you. You know, before you start taking inventory in your daily life, you know, in some spiritual practices, we call that the traditions. You know, unity, love, unconditional love. Live it. Try to live it. And don't be I'll tell you a great story before I go about misinterpreting each other's spiritual practices and religions. So my great-great-great-grandmother, or great-great-great-great-great-grandmother, was standing there with my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. And they were watching these guys. First of all, they'd never seen horses before. And here are these guys riding on horses. And they got these staffs with them. And they're holding them at the top of the staff, you know, and they're riding on their horses carrying these staffs. And my grandmother said, my great-great-great-great-grandmother said to my great-great-great-great-grandfather, can we trust them? Can we trust them? And my grandfather goes, I think so. Look, they're honoring the 4 directions. See, it's a little misperception can, we have to always be aware of our perceptions, because that one was a disaster. That one was a disaster. Still going on. So, I love y'all. Be blessed. I've been rambling a little too much. And I'm done. Thank you.